I never imagined I would face this moment. Labor pains were tearing through my body, and when I lifted my gaze, there he stood, Elijah, my ex-alpha husband. He was the doctor who would deliver my baby. My breath caught in my throat. In the harsh fluorescent lights of the delivery room, his eyes met mine, and for one suspended moment, all the noise around us disappeared. Just him and me. Jones? He said my name with such shock that I knew instantly. He was utterly unprepared for this encounter, but he was already slipping into his professional mask, pulling on his gloves, hiding whatever emotions churned beneath the surface. I tried to steady myself. Focus on your baby, Jones. That's all that matters. But how could I focus when he stood there, those same hands that once held me with love now gripping medical instruments? Another contraction hit, and I let out a groan. Jones, breathe with me. In, out, in, out. That familiar concern in his voice made everything hurt even more. I looked directly into his eyes and said, "Just save my baby, Dr. Ashford. Everything else comes later." The coldness in my voice was unmistakable, and he recognized it. He paused for a second, then continued his work. Nurses were following instructions. Monitors were beeping, and my heart filled with a strange, terrible ache. This was the same Alpha who abandoned me when I needed him most. The one who said there was no room in his life for an Omega. The one who rejected our bond when I was at my most vulnerable. And now here he stood, about to bring my child into this world. One more push, Jones. You can do this. Almost there. Elijah's voice had softened slightly. I gathered every ounce of strength I had and pushed. Tears streamed down my cheeks. The pain was so intense I wanted to scream, but I bit down hard on my lip instead. Last one. Come on, you're so strong. His voice cracked as he said it. I pushed again with everything I had left. And then, a sound. Small, trembling, miraculous. My son. My life. I opened my eyes. Elijah carefully lifted the baby, cleaning his nose and mouth, and when he looked at me, there was something deeper in his expression, an emotion he tried to conceal but couldn't. It's a boy. Healthy and perfect, he said in a thick voice before handing the baby to the nurse. The nurse wrapped him and showed me, pink cheeks, tiny fists, soft cries. My Nick. My everything. I pulled him against my chest and kissed his forehead. He was mine. Only mine. He's really beautiful. Elijah's voice was barely audible. Still standing close to me. I didn't look at him. Thank you, doctor. You may leave now. He stood there for several seconds, as if wanting to say something. Then he removed his mask, looked at me one final time, and walked out. When the door closed, I finally let my tears flow freely. I held Nick tighter, feeling his soft breaths. It's just you and me, baby. Always, I whispered. But then the nurse returned and said, Jones, Dr. Ashford has specifically requested to handle all your follow-up appointments himself. He insists on personally monitoring both you and the baby. My heart sank. This wasn't over. It had only just begun, and I didn't know if I was ready for what came next. The hours that followed blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and overwhelming emotion. Nick was taken for routine newborn checks while I was cleaned up and moved to a recovery room. My body ached in ways I had never experienced, but the physical pain paled compared to the emotional turmoil churning inside me. Seeing Elijah again after all these months, after he walked away from us, had reopened wounds I thought were beginning to heal. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment in that delivery room. The way his hands trembled slightly when he first saw me. The crack in his voice when he announced our son's arrival. The longing in his eyes when he looked at Nick. Stop it, Jones. Don't read into things that aren't there. He made his choice when he left. When they brought Nick back to me, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, all my dark thoughts evaporated. I studied every detail of his tiny face, the slope of his nose, the curve of his lips, the delicate eyelashes resting against his cheeks. He was absolutely perfect. You're going to have the best life, I murmured to him. I promise you that. You won't ever feel abandoned or unwanted. Not like. I stopped myself. This wasn't about me or my pain. This was about Nick and the future we would build together. Just the two of us. A knock interrupted my thoughts. My whole body tensed, expecting Elijah, but it was just a different nurse coming to check my vitals and explain the feeding schedule. She was kind and patient, answering all my anxious first-time parent questions without judgment. After she left, I attempted to feed Nick for the first time. It was awkward and difficult, nothing like the peaceful scenes I had imagined. He fussed. I fumbled, and tears of frustration welled up in my eyes. But eventually we found our rhythm, and when he finally latched properly, relief flooded through me. We can do this. We will figure it out together. As evening fell and the hospital quieted down, I found myself thinking about tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that. How would I manage alone? I had savings, but they wouldn't last forever. I needed to return to work eventually. But who would watch Nick? My small apartment wasn't ideal for raising a baby. The list of worries grew longer and more daunting. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, though I knew exactly who it was. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but please, if you need anything at all, reach out. For Nick's sake, if not your own. Congratulations on your beautiful son. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, to block the number and pretend Elijah didn't exist. But another part, the part that remembered how much I once loved him, how safe I felt in his arms, how complete our bond made me feel, that part whispered that maybe things were more complicated than I wanted to admit. I set the phone down without responding and looked at Nick sleeping peacefully beside me. Whatever happened next, whatever complicated feelings I had about Elijah, one thing was crystal clear. My son came first. Always. The next morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the hospital blinds. My body was still sore, and sleep had come in fragmented pieces throughout the night. Nick rested in the crib beside my bed, sleeping peacefully. I watched him, his small nose, soft skin, perfect features, everything about him seemed so fragile. A knock came at the door. I knew who it would be. Elijah entered wearing his white coat, hair slightly disheveled as if he had been on duty all night, exhaustion clear in his eyes. "Good morning, Jones. Time for your checkup." He used a professional tone, but I could hear the hesitation underneath. "Go ahead," I said without looking at him. He approached using his stethoscope. When his fingers touched my wrist to check my pulse, I felt it, a touch that once made me feel like home. Now it felt like a stranger's hand. "Recovery is progressing well. Bleeding is normal. Vitals are stable," he said, stepping back. Then he looked toward Nick. His expression softened noticeably. "Have you chosen a name yet?" I stayed silent for a few seconds. He had no right to ask. But I looked at my baby and answered, "Nick." Elijah gave a small smile. "Beautiful name. Really beautiful." An awkward silence followed. Finally, I looked directly at him. "Elijah, you don't need to keep coming here. Another doctor can handle our care." His eyes met mine, sincere, pained. "Because I want to make sure you're safe, Jones. You and Nick both." "Safe?" Anger rose in me. "You made me feel unsafe when you left. When you abandoned me while I was pregnant and alone. You have no right to claim you care now." Elijah's jaw tightened. He set down his clipboard and sat in the chair facing me. "Jones, I know what I did was terrible. I regret it every single day." "Regret?" I laughed bitterly. "What good does regret do, Elijah? You left me when I needed you desperately. I was pregnant, terrified, completely alone, and you just walked away. You never even looked back." Elijah buried his face in his hands. "I was scared, Jones. I thought I wasn't good enough for you. The hospital gave me an ultimatum. Either end our bond or lose my fellowship. My parents were pressuring me constantly. I was weak." Tears filled my eyes. "Being weak isn't the crime. Leaving me was. You didn't choose me. You didn't choose us." He moved closer, dropping to his knees beside my bed. "Jones, please, give me one chance. I want to make everything right. For you, for Nick." I turned my face away. "Nick isn't yours. He's only mine." Shock registered on his face. "Jones." "No," I said firmly. "I won't let my son know the person who abandoned us. I won't let him experience the same pain I went through." Elijah stood, hurt written across his features, but he didn't argue. He simply stood there, then spoke quietly. I understand, but I need you to know, I never want to hurt you or Nick again. I'm here, Jones. Whenever you need me." He left a business card on the bedside table with his personal number and walked out. When he was gone, I closed my eyes. But my heart was telling me, this wouldn't be simple at all. The hospital social worker visited later that morning. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner. She went through discharge procedures, explaining resources available for new parents, particularly single parents. I appreciated her lack of judgment, the way she presented information without making assumptions about my situation. "Do you have support at home?" she asked. I hesitated. "I'll manage. I'm resourceful." She gave me a knowing look. Being resourceful is admirable, but everyone needs help sometimes. Here's information about parent support groups, lactation consultants, and emergency hotlines. Please don't hesitate to use them. After she left, I felt the weight of reality settling on my shoulders. I was truly doing this alone. No partner to share night feedings. No one to reassure me when anxiety spiraled. No strong arms to hold me when exhaustion became overwhelming. Just me and Nick against the world. Throughout the day, various hospital staff came and went. Nurses checking on us, a pediatrician examining Nick thoroughly, a lactation consultant helping me improve our feeding technique. Everyone was professional and helpful, but there was an emptiness to it all. These were strangers performing their jobs, not people who genuinely cared about our well-being beyond their shifts. Late afternoon brought another knock. My stomach twisted, expecting Elijah again, but instead it was a delivery person with a large bouquet of flowers. The card read, "For the strongest person I know and the most beautiful baby boy, wishing you both health and happiness. Your strength inspires me every day." It was unsigned, but I recognized Elijah's handwriting immediately. I stared at the flowers, white lilies and blue hydrangeas, my favorites. He remembered. Of course he remembered. We had been bonded mates once, and he had memorized every detail about me. The flowers were beautiful, but they also felt like a complication I didn't need. I considered asking the nurses to remove them, but something stopped me. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe some small part of me still appreciated the gesture despite everything. Evening arrived, and I attempted another feeding session with Nick. This time went more smoothly, and I felt a small surge of accomplishment. We were learning together, finding our way. After he finished eating, I held him against my shoulder, gently patting his back the way the nurses had shown me. His tiny body was warm and trusting in my arms, and fierce protectiveness overwhelmed me. "I'll be enough for you," I whispered. "I promise I'll be everything you." But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. What if I wasn't enough? What if Nick eventually asked about his other parent? What if denying Elijah access to his son was selfish rather than protective? These questions had no easy answers, and thinking about them made my head ache. I settled Nick back in his crib and tried to rest, but sleep remained elusive. My phone sat on the table, Elijah's message still unanswered. My finger hovered over the keyboard multiple times, but I never typed anything. What would I even say? That I was confused? That seeing him again stirred up feelings I thought were dead? That part of me, despite the betrayal and abandonment, still remembered what it felt like to be loved by him. No. Those were dangerous thoughts that led nowhere good. I had to stay focused on what mattered, protecting my heart and raising Nick in a stable, loving environment. Even if that environment was just the two of us. Discharge day arrived with mixed emotions. I dressed Nick in his tiny blue onesie, and he looked so adorable my heart melted completely. The nurses provided detailed discharge instructions, and I packed our few belongings when Elijah appeared again. "Jones, your discharge paperwork is complete. Do you have transportation arranged?" he asked, hesitantly. "Yes. I booked a cab. I'll manage," I replied firmly. Elijah bit his lip, clearly wanting to say something but holding back. "Jones, you'll need help during these initial weeks. Especially being alone." "I'm fine," I interrupted. "Nick and I will be perfectly okay." He was about to respond when his phone beeped. An emergency page. "Dr. Ashford, cardiac emergency in the ER," a nurse announced at the door. Elijah released a frustrated sigh. I'll call you later." I gave no response. He looked at Nick one last time before leaving. I carefully settled Nick into his car seat and climbed into the cab. When we reached my apartment building, reality struck hard. It was an old building with an elevator that worked sporadically. I began climbing the stairs, Nick in one arm and my bag in the other. By the time I reached my floor, exhaustion had overtaken me. Entering the apartment, silence engulfed us. Nobody was here, just Nick and me. I placed Nick in his bassinet and sat watching him. "We're going to be okay, baby. I promise," I told him, kissing him gently. But as night fell, reality became clearer. Nick cried every 2 hours, needing feeding and diaper changes. I was exhausted. My body was still recovering from delivery, and now this constant care was overwhelming. But I pushed myself. I wanted to be strong for Nick. One night, when Nick was crying intensely, I tried everything: feeding, diaper changes, rocking, singing lullabies. Nothing worked. His cries grew more intense and panic started setting in. I checked his temperature, slightly elevated. My heart pounded. What should I do? Go to the emergency room? Or? I picked up my phone, retrieved Elijah's card, thought for several seconds, then called. He answered after 2 rings. "Jones?" His voice was alert. "Elijah, Nick. He won't stop crying and his temperature is higher than normal. I don't know what to do." My voice trembled. "I'm coming right now. Send me your address. Don't panic, okay? I'm on my way," he said reassuringly. I shared my location. Within 15 minutes, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Elijah stood there with his medical bag, concern filling his eyes. "Where's Nick?" I brought him inside. Nick was still crying, his sounds weak but continuous. Elijah immediately picked him up, checked his temperature, listened to his chest with a stethoscope, examined his throat. "Looks like a mild throat infection. Nothing serious but definitely uncomfortable for him," Elijah explained calmly. He pulled medicine from his bag. "Give him these drops every 8 hours. Keep him hydrated, try to humidify the room if possible." I noted all the instructions carefully. Elijah gently rocked Nick while humming softly. Gradually, Nick's crying subsided. I was amazed how calming Elijah's touch was for Nick. He sat on the couch, holding Nick in his arms, softly singing a lullaby. My heart tightened. This was the same Alpha who abandoned me, yet now he was holding my baby so tenderly, as if Nick were his own family. "You didn't need to come," I said quietly. Elijah looked at me. "Yes, I did, Jones. For you. For Nick. I can't watch you struggle." I fell silent. Nick finally fell asleep in Elijah's arms. He slowly placed him in the bassinet, carefully adjusted the blanket, and returned to me. "Jones, you look completely exhausted. When did you last sleep properly?" I shrugged. "I honestly don't remember." Elijah's expression softened. "You need to rest. I'll stay here tonight in case Nick needs anything." "No, you have duty tomorrow." I took the night off. "Please, Jones. You need rest," he insisted. I couldn't argue anymore. I went to my room, but sleep wouldn't come. My thoughts raced endlessly. A few hours later, I came back out. Elijah was on the couch, awake, watching Nick. "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" I asked. He looked at me. "I'm here so you don't have to worry." I sat down beside him. Silence stretched between us. Then I asked, "Elijah, why are you doing all this? What's the real reason?" He stayed quiet, then spoke. "Because I never want to lose you and Nick. I made a terrible mistake, Jones. Leaving you, it's the biggest regret of my life. Now I want to fix it." My heart raced. "You don't understand, Elijah. You didn't just physically leave me, you shattered my trust, my beliefs. I thought we were forever. I thought our bond meant something real, but you destroyed everything with one decision." Elijah took my hand gently, carefully. "I know, and I apologize every single day. Without you, my life feels incomplete. Empty." I held back tears. "But Nick exists now. He's my priority. His safety, his happiness. That's everything to me." "He's my priority too," Elijah said firmly. "I want to be present for Nick. Present for you. If you'll give me the chance." I pulled my hand away. "It's not that easy, Elijah. Rebuilding trust, that takes time. Pain doesn't disappear overnight." "I'll wait," he said simply. "However long it takes. I'll be here." His eyes showed pure sincerity, genuine honesty. I said nothing. Just stood and went back to my room. But that night, for the first time in months, I felt a small measure of peace. Because someone actually cared. Whether I was ready to accept him or not, the following days established a strange new pattern. Elijah would stop by after his hospital shifts. Always bringing something: groceries, baby supplies, takeout food so I wouldn't have to cook. He never stayed long, respecting my boundaries. But his presence became a constant fixture. I found myself watching him with Nick, observing how naturally he held him, how confidently he soothed him when fussy. He was good with babies, genuinely good, and Nick seemed to sense it. Sometimes I caught myself softening, remembering why I fell in love with him originally. But then memories of abandonment would surface, and my walls would rebuild themselves instantly. This push and pull exhausted me almost as much as new parenthood itself. One evening after Elijah had left, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection. Dark circles shadowed my eyes, my hair needed washing, my clothes hung loosely from pregnancy weight. I hadn't yet lost. When had I become this person? I remembered being confident, put together, happy. Now I just looked tired. Broke. My phone buzzed with a message from Elijah. "You're doing an amazing job. Nick is lucky to have you. Sleep well tonight." Despite myself, I smiled. Maybe healing wasn't linear. Maybe it was okay to be confused and scared and still somehow moving forward. Maybe that was enough for now. Over the following weeks, Elijah became a regular presence in our lives. Sometimes he came under the pretense of checking on Nick's development. Other times he arrived with groceries I hadn't asked for, and occasionally he simply showed up offering help. Initially I maintained my distance, determined to keep those protective walls firmly in place. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, those barriers began to crumble. His care felt genuine, not forced or obligatory. One evening, I was in the kitchen preparing Nick's formula when I heard Elijah's voice from the living room. He had Nick on the playmat, talking to him with genuine enthusiasm. "Look at this, Nick. See the rattle? Hear that sound?" His excited tone made Nick gurgle happily in response. I watched them from the doorway. Elijah was completely absorbed in the moment, smiling at every tiny reaction Nick gave. "Your father is incredibly strong, Nick. Just like you'll be someday," Elijah said softly. My heart melted hearing those words. He was calling me Nick's father, acknowledging my role, validating everything I had done alone. I brought the bottle over. "Here you go." Elijah took it and began feeding Nick with such careful tenderness that I couldn't help but sit beside them. "You don't have to do this every day," I mentioned, watching how naturally he handled my son. "I want to," Elijah replied simply. Then he looked at me with those intense eyes. "Jones, you too. You mean everything to me. I want to feel like I'm contributing to your life, even if it's just in small ways." I took a deep breath, feeling vulnerable. I'm terrified, Elijah. "If I let you back into our lives, and you leave again, I'll be destroyed. And this time, Nick will be hurt too." Elijah carefully placed Nick on the couch and knelt before me. "Jones, I swear to you, I will never leave. I won't hurt you or Nick. I give you my word on everything I hold sacred." "Promises can be broken, Elijah. I've seen it happen," I whispered, tears filling my eyes despite my efforts to stay strong. "This one won't break," he said, cradling my face in his hands. "You can trust me. I'll prove it every single day." I looked into his eyes and saw the old love still burning there, mixed with new determination and raw honesty. "I need time, Elijah. Please understand that." "I'll give you all the time you need," he said, pressing a light, reverent kiss to my forehead. In that moment, all my carefully constructed defenses cracked wide open. I didn't hold back my tears this time. They flowed freely as Elijah pulled me into a hug. Tight, warm, protective. Everything I had missed. "It's okay, Jones. Crying is healthy. I'm here now. I'll always be here." For the first time in months, I felt truly safe in his arms, surrounded by his cedarwood scent that I had always loved, the scent I tried so hard to hate but never could. That embrace broke something inside me, shattered those barriers I had worked so hard to build. After that night, our relationship began its slow journey toward healing. Elijah maintained his regular visits, sometimes cooking dinner when I was too exhausted, other times staying late into the night to handle Nick's fussy moments. I noticed how much he had genuinely changed. More mature, more understanding, infinitely more patient than before. One quiet evening, we sat together on the couch while Nick slept peacefully in his bassinet. We found ourselves reminiscing about our past. "Do you remember when we first met?" Elijah asked with a nostalgic smile. "The hospital charity gala. I was working as a waiter and you accidentally knocked a wine glass all over my shirt." I laughed softly at the memory. "Yes, and you didn't even give me a proper apology. You just stood there awkwardly." "I was nervous," Elijah confessed. "Your scent was so intoxicating, lavender and vanilla, that I couldn't think straight. I felt myself blushing." "Really? I had no idea." "Absolutely. I wanted you from that very first moment," Elijah said, looking at me with such intensity that my breath caught. I met his gaze, and he moved closer, slowly, carefully, as if afraid I might disappear. His scent enveloped me, overwhelming my senses in the best way. My heart began racing uncontrollably. "Jones." He whispered my name like a prayer. "Yes?" My own voice came out barely audible. He touched my cheek, his thumb stroking gently across my skin. "I want permission to love you again. Properly this time. Truly and completely." I closed my eyes as emotions threatened to overwhelm me entirely. "Elijah, just one chance. Please, Jones. That's all I'm asking." I opened my eyes and saw pure sincerity there, complete vulnerability laid bare before me. Slowly I nodded. He kissed me then, soft and gentle, filled with unspoken promises and hope for our future. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but these were happy tears. Tears of relief and possibility. When we finally pulled apart, he pressed his forehead against mine. "Thank you. I swear I won't disappoint you." I kissed him back, this time with more depth and need, pouring months of loneliness and longing into that connection. Our bond was reforming, stronger than before, tested by pain but somehow surviving. Because now we were both more mature, both aware of consequences, and both desperately wanted this to work. For Nick's sake and for our own. That night we held each other on the couch, dreaming together about a new future, one where all three of us were a proper family, and for the first time, those dreams didn't seem impossible. They felt real, achievable, within reach. The shift in our dynamic was gradual but undeniable. Elijah started staying later, helping with Nick's nighttime routine. He would read to him from picture books, his voice soft and soothing, while I watched from the doorway with a heart that felt too full for my chest. We developed an easy rhythm. I would handle morning feedings while Elijah got ready for work, then he would return in the evenings to give me a break. It wasn't official co-parenting, not yet, but it was something beautiful growing between us. One morning I woke to find Elijah already awake, holding Nick against his chest while humming a melody I didn't recognize. "Is that a lullaby?" I asked sleepily. "Something my mother used to sing," he admitted. I thought Nick might like it. Watching them together, I realized something important. I wasn't just healing for myself anymore. I was healing for us, for the family we could potentially become. We talked more openly during those weeks, working through the pain of our separation. Elijah explained the pressure he had faced from the hospital administration, how they viewed our relationship as unprofessional given his position. He described his parents' traditional expectations and their disappointment when they learned about our bond. None of it excused what he did, but it helped me understand the impossible position he thought he was in. "I should have fought harder," he admitted one night. "I should have chosen you over everything else. That's what mates do." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "But you're fighting now. That has to count for something." He looked at me with such gratitude that I had to look away, still not quite ready to fully surrender to the hope building inside me. But we were getting there slowly but surely, one honest conversation at a time. Several months passed, and a comfortable routine had settled into our lives. Elijah was at my apartment almost every day. He hadn't officially moved in, but his toothbrush occupied space in my bathroom. His clothes hung in my closet, and he spent most nights sleeping beside us. We were properly co-parenting now, and Nick was absolutely thriving with his presence. He would giggle when Elijah tickled him, his tiny hands grasping at Elijah's fingers during playtime. One evening, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, simple pasta, when Elijah wrapped his arms around me from behind. His embrace was warm and secure, his chin resting on my shoulder. "I love you, Jones." He pressed a soft kiss to my neck, My heart stuttered. This was the first time he had spoken those 3 words directly in recent weeks. "I love you too, Elijah," I whispered, covering his hands with mine. He gently turned me to face him. "I want us to officially bond again, properly this time, legally and emotionally, the whole commitment." My eyes widened in surprise. Are you absolutely sure? That's such a huge step. I have never been more certain about anything in my entire life," he said, reaching into his pocket to produce a small velvet box. Inside sat a ring, a simple silver band with a delicate emerald stone. "Jones, will you bond with me again? Will you marry me? Forever? Truly this time?" Tears streamed down my cheeks. I couldn't find my voice to speak, so I just nodded repeatedly. Elijah slipped the ring onto my finger, then kissed me deep, possessive, loving, claiming. Our bond reconnected in that moment. Invisible threads weaving back together, this time unbreakable. A few weeks later, we planned an intimate ceremony with only close friends and immediate family in attendance. It would be a simple garden wedding with fairy lights and flowers, creating a magical atmosphere. Nick was there too, dressed in a tiny white suit, held in the arms of Elijah's best man. When I walked down the aisle toward Elijah, I saw tears glistening in his eyes. "You look absolutely beautiful," he whispered when I reached him. "So do you," I smiled through my own tears. We exchanged vows that we had written ourselves. Handwritten, heartfelt, and completely raw. "I promise never to abandon you, Jones. I will always protect you and Nick. I'll be your shield, your home, your everything," Elijah said, gripping my hand tightly. "I promise to trust you, Elijah. I'll give you chances, love you deeply, and we'll build a family together that nothing can break apart," I replied, my voice shaking with emotion. When we kissed, everyone cheered enthusiastically. Nick clapped his tiny hands together, gurgling excitedly as if he understood we were celebrating something wonderful. Our family was finally complete. The reception was small, held in the backyard. String lights twinkled overhead while soft music played in the background. We danced for the first time as officially bonded mates, Elijah leading confidently while I felt completely safe in his arms. "Does this feel real to you?" I asked softly. "Very real, and I'm grateful every single day that you gave me this second chance," Elijah said, kissing my forehead tenderly. "I'm grateful too, that you came back, that you fought for all 3 of us." We held each other close, swaying to the music, completely lost in our own private world. This was the happy ending I never thought possible. But here it was, real, tangible, beautiful. That night when we returned home, officially our home now, Nick was already asleep. We were in the bedroom, exhausted but blissfully happy. Elijah gently laid me on the bed, kissing my face with such tenderness. "From today forward, we're officially a family, legally, emotionally, in every possible way." I smiled contentedly. We've always been a family. It just took us some time to realize it fully. He hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Jones. You forgave me and gave me another chance. I'll spend my life being worthy of that gift." "You already are," I said, listening to his steady heartbeat. We fell asleep in each other's arms, peaceful and content. The next morning when I woke, Elijah was already feeding Nick, humming a soft lullaby. I watched them, my alpha and my son, and realized this was everything I had ever wanted. The journey had been tumultuous and painful, but the ending was absolutely perfect. Living as bonded mates brought new dimensions to our relationship. We learned each other's rhythms all over again. Elijah's tendency to wake early and make coffee, my habit of staying up late writing. We discovered how to navigate disagreements without letting them escalate, how to support each other through stress without taking frustrations out on one another. Nick became the center of our universe, but we also made time for ourselves. Date nights when Elijah's sister would babysit, quiet moments on the balcony after Nick fell asleep. "I never thought I could be this happy," I admitted one night. "Neither did I," Elijah responded, "especially after I ruined everything so completely. Sometimes I still can't believe you took me back." "Love is strange that way," I mused. "It endures even when we think it shouldn't." Our bond deepened in ways I hadn't experienced the first time around. Perhaps because we had both been broken and rebuilt, we appreciated each other more fully. Elijah never took me for granted anymore, always expressing gratitude for small things, A home-cooked meal, a listening ear after a difficult shift, my patience with his long hours. And I learned to voice my needs instead of suffering in silence, trusting that he would hear me and respond. We grew together rather than apart, building something stronger than what we had lost. One evening while watching Nick play with his building blocks, Elijah squeezed my hand. We did good, didn't we? We did better than good, I agree. We created something beautiful from the ashes of our mistakes. He kissed my temple and we sat in comfortable silence, watching our son and feeling grateful for second chances. The physical aspect of our relationship rekindled slowly, carefully. We took our time relearning each other's bodies, discovering what had changed and what remained the same. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people rediscovering intimacy after months apart. Every touch felt meaningful, every kiss a promise. I missed this, Elijah murmured against my skin one night. I missed you. I'm here now, I reassured him. We both are. Our connection felt sacred in a way it hadn't before. Perhaps because we understood how easily it could be lost. We cherished every moment together, never taking anything for granted. And when we came together physically, it was with the knowledge that we were building something permanent, something that would last. Our bond hummed contentedly between us, finally at peace after months of painful separation. We were whole again, perhaps even more complete than we had been before everything fell apart. A year later, our lives had transformed completely. Elijah was officially living with me full-time, and we had rented a larger apartment that included a proper nursery for Nick, colorful, cozy, filled with toys and books. Nick was learning to walk now, toddling around the apartment while giggling constantly at his own unsteady steps. I had started freelance content writing from home, which gave me flexibility with childcare, while Elijah had been promoted to senior attending physician at the hospital. We were financially stable and emotionally stronger than ever before. One Sunday morning I was in the kitchen making breakfast pancakes, Nick's absolute favorite, when Elijah entered carrying Nick on his shoulders. Airplane Nick incoming, Elijah announced dramatically, and Nick squealed with pure delight. I laughed at their antics. Be careful, he might fall. Never, I would never let him fall, Elijah said seriously, then winked at me playfully. We ate breakfast together at the table, messy, chaotic, absolutely perfect. Nick managed to get more pancake on his face than in his mouth, but his happiness made the mess worthwhile. Later, we went to the park to let Nick play on the swings. Elijah pushed him gently while Nick giggled with each movement. I sat on a nearby bench, watching my two favorite people in the world. A couple walked past and smiled warmly. Beautiful family, they commented. Thank you, I replied with a genuine smile, and it was true, we were a beautiful family in every sense. When Nick grew tired, we returned home. He played with his toys while Elijah and I relaxed on the couch with coffee. Do you remember when Nick first said his version of Daddy? I asked Elijah. Yes, he was pointing at me. I actually cried, Elijah confessed, getting emotional at the memory. I did too, because in that moment, I realized we were truly a family, complete and whole. Elijah took my hand, and we always will be. I promise you that with everything I have. That evening, after we put Nick to bed, we were in our bedroom together. Elijah held me close. Jones, I sometimes wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't been the one in that delivery room that day? I considered the question thoughtfully. Maybe we never would have reconciled. Maybe Nick would have grown up never knowing you. That's terrifying to think about. But I'm grateful that fate brought us back together, Elijah said, kissing my forehead. Me too, because you showed me that second chances are real. That love can actually heal wounds we thought were permanent. We were quiet for a few moments, then Elijah spoke again. I've been thinking, maybe we could give Nick a sibling. My eyes widened in surprise. Are you serious about that? Absolutely. I want our family to grow. If you're ready, of course. I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. I'm ready. We're ready. We kissed each other slowly, deeply, the embrace filled with promises and dreams for our future. Our life looked incredibly bright ahead. A few months later, when I took a pregnancy test and saw the positive result, Elijah literally spun me around in the air. We're going to be parents again, he announced excitedly. Nick looked confused by all the commotion but clapped along anyway. We told him he would be getting a baby brother or sister. And he simply smiled his innocent toddler smile. This pregnancy journey was completely different from the first. Elijah was with me every single step of the way, attending every appointment, handling my strange cravings at odd hours, having midnight conversations about our expanding family. There was no fear, no loneliness, no anxiety, just love and unwavering support. When our second son was born, we named him Carter. Nick was incredibly excited. "Baby," he kept repeating, gently touching Carter's tiny hands with wonder. Our family now consisted of 4 members. It was chaotic, messy, loud, and demanding. But it was also absolutely perfect in every way. One night, after both boys were asleep, Elijah and I stood on the balcony looking up at the stars. "Did you ever imagine our story would reach this point?" I asked. "Never in my wildest dreams, but I'm so grateful it did. Because this you, Nick, Carter, this is everything that matters to me," Elijah said, pulling me into a side embrace. "For me too. You showed me that people can genuinely change, that forgiveness holds real power." We stood there in comfortable silence, thinking about our family and the journey that brought us here. The path had been difficult, filled with pain, heartbreak, and doubt. But we had survived all of it. And now we were thriving in ways we never thought possible. Because love had conquered everything in the end. And now the 4 of us were together forever. Unbreakable, eternal. Family life with 2 children brought new challenges and joys we hadn't anticipated. Nick adapted to being a big brother with surprising grace, though he occasionally showed normal sibling jealousy when Carter received too much attention. We navigated those moments with patience and understanding, making sure Nick still felt special and loved. Elijah proved to be an incredible father, patient during tantrums, creative during playtime, loving during bedtime routines. Watching him with our sons filled me with such profound happiness that sometimes I had to blink back tears. "What's wrong?" he would ask when he caught me emotional. "Nothing's wrong," I would assure him. "Everything is finally right." We established traditions as a family. Sunday morning pancakes, evening walks to the park, bedtime stories where we took turns doing silly voices. These small rituals became the foundation of our family identity, creating memories I knew our boys would carry into adulthood. Sometimes during quiet moments, I would reflect on how far we had come from that painful delivery room encounter. The man who had abandoned me was not the same man who now changed diapers at 3 in the morning and sang lullabies until his voice grew hoarse. People could change, I had learned. Growth was possible when someone truly committed to it. "Do you have any regrets?" Elijah asked me one anniversary evening. "Only one," I admitted. "I wish we hadn't wasted so much time apart, but maybe we needed that separation to appreciate what we have now." He nodded thoughtfully. "I think you're right. We're better together now than we ever were before." Our bond as mates had matured into something deeper and more resilient. We had weathered the worst storm possible and emerged stronger. Our love wasn't the naive, idealistic romance of youth anymore. It was tested, thorny, unshakable. When challenges arose, we faced them as a united team. When celebrations happened, we shared them as one. Our sons would grow up seeing what real partnership looked like, what commitment actually meant. That knowledge filled me with pride. As I watched Elijah read bedtime stories to Nick and Carter, their small faces illuminated by the nightlight's soft glow, I felt overwhelming gratitude. This was my family. This was my home. This was the life I had fought so hard to build from the broken pieces of what came before, and it was more beautiful than anything I could have imagined. Our story hadn't ended in that delivery room. It had only just begun, and the chapters ahead promised to be filled with love, laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from choosing each other every single day.